Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today discussing what did we just watch? Sam, it's the year 2021 and an NFL team won a football game with 3 pass attempts and 19 yards. That's right, the Patriots defeat the Buffalo Bills 14-10 on Monday Night Football. And we're here to break down all of the goodness that was this game. The Patriots rushing attack, 46 carries for over 200 yards. That includes the kneels and all that stuff. It was more dominant than even that. But Sam, any takeaways from this game with the gusting the wind they said was 20 to 50 miles an hour. That's a pretty big range for wind. Clearly, you could see that in this game. It was a factor.
Yeah, this is fun, didn't you think? Everybody,
yeah,
it's crazy weather games, and people want to crap all over crazy weather games, but they give you ridiculous madness like this. There were 27 total first downs in this game combined. There was less than 500 yards of total offense in this game. As you said, Mac Jones attempted 3 passes. 500? 200 or right. 471 total yards of offense between the two sides.
That sounds high.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's ridiculous. Mac Jones attempted 3 passes, attempted 1 for most of the game before, getting a little bit crazy late on. And putting another couple in the air. But this is kind of fun. We saw all the tweets and the videos before the game of the insane wind, the weather, the snow coming down, just everything was madness. And you're like, oh, this game is going to be crazy. And it was, but I think that kind of made for a fun game. It never got out of control one way or the other. It was, nobody was ever going to score a ton of points. The Patriots came out and just ran incessantly, and Buffalo had a problem stopping it. And then you got some sort of incredible things to look at, like Josh Allen still somehow throwing a perfect spiral and just carving through the wind with his ridiculous velocity on the ball. I enjoyed that game a lot, even though it was ridiculous.
Well, yeah, because there was a ton of strategy involved. You knew that neither team could really they couldn't afford to make mistakes. And then it was like, okay, is Mac Jones ever going to, run play action? Are you ever going to fake it after handing it off about 35 straight times? And
how established does the run need to be before you can hit the play action?
Then the Patriots opened it up on 3rd and 5 and ran a QB sneak. That was their version of opening up the playbook on 3rd and medium there. You're right about Josh Allen, though. Absolute, incredible velocity. Obviously, it didn't matter. But it was another one of those games, too. He threw a pass to Stephon Diggs. It was the only actual deep pass in this game. The only one that was actually floated up into that gusting wind. And it hit Stephon Diggs in the forearm,
right,
in the end zone, about 40-plus yards down the field. Now, Diggs seems surprised by it. I can only assume that thing was floating all over the place. But it still kind of got to his hands. Obviously, that was a huge play in the game. And then it went the other way when Josh Allen had Stephon Diggs. Yeah, he had about a half a step on the back shoulder in the end zone on one of their game-winning drive opportunities, and Josh Allen sails it. I mean, you got to see a little bit of both things. When Josh Allen made a great throw, it wasn't complete. When he had an open receiver, it was missed, and the Patriots hold on. Incredible, entertaining game, I certainly would say, with the wind and the run game and all the various things that we saw there.
It really was. And, this is... Obviously, it was a hugely important game just in terms of leverage within the division, within the conference, seeding, all these kinds of things. And for the Patriots, I think they've taken control over all of that now. This was a huge game to win over Buffalo. I think it was an important game in terms of sort of laying down a marker of what's to come in a few weeks when they rematch, when they play each other again, because the Patriots essentially were saying, we are not going to pass the ball in this game. We're going to run the ball every single play, and it's coming. And Buffalo still had a really hard time stopping it. They showed up a couple of times late, and they sort of forced the Patriots to either put the ball in the air a little bit or to just bail on the drive. But those early drives, they weren't stopping them at all. And if you fast forward to a few weeks' time where weather presumably is not going to be as big a factor and it's going to be a much more normal game, if you add any kind of passing threat to what the Patriots were doing on the ground, all of a sudden, Buffalo just doesn't have answers to that right now.
I want to get into some of the coaching because obviously everybody's lauding Bill Belichick for the win, and there was a lot of good stuff in there. But first, football fans, I'm sure you love an action-packed, high-scoring NFL game, despite what we just watched. But you could even have won in the Monday Night Football game because with the latest no-brainer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, you'll be a winner once a single point is scored. New customers who bet just $1 on any team to score can win $100 in free bets. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, you can still get in on the NFL action. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests, and DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet $1 on any team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit at $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so a couple big decisions in this entire game. First off, the Patriots go for two early on because they didn't have faith in the extra point. They go for two to go up 8-0. The big decision by Belichick and the Patriots to just run the ball like crazy. But I think on the other side, right, is a game where Belichick basically said, we don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to make mistakes. And they really didn't. And then the Bills made mistakes. They had second and goal, down by 4. It was 14-10 at the time. And on second and goal, they call a timeout, which was the second timeout that the Bills used because of a bad challenge, I think, when they challenged a Mac Jones QB sneak with no evidence. They call timeout. Josh Allen loses yardage coming out of the timeout on a sack. Third down, Josh Allen thinks they have a free play, sails it incomplete. And then fourth down, the Bills try to kick a field goal into the wind. And even though it was fourth and long, they still probably should have just chucked it in the end zone and taken a chance there. But to me, that was the sequence, or one of the sequences, where the Bills just made mistakes, and the Patriots' strategy of not making mistakes ended up paying off. The Bills ended up beating themselves, but, the Patriots earned in that too.
Yeah, like the weather was such a radical, the wind really, like it wasn't, the rest of the weather wasn't really a factor. It didn't really snow. It wasn't particularly wet. It was just the wind was insane. And it was such an extreme factor in the game that it completely changes like everything you're doing. So obviously the most obvious way is that the Patriots basically went, we're not passing the ball ever. And that's how we're going to play this game. But it was changing that kind of thing. Like the Mannings on their Manning cast were talking about how like third down was becoming about like maneuvering the ball onto the right hash for the kicker to be able to like aim, way left and have it bend back in towards the post because of the wind. It wasn't like forget converting third down. Third down is about where you want the ball to try and attempt this kick. Whereas the Bills were still, I think, trying to play a kind of normal, quote unquote, brand of game and hadn't adjusted as much to the like crazy conditions that were out there.
Yeah, I thought that Josh Allen would be used more as a runner by the Bills, either because you call a run play and Josh Allen has the ability to keep it. That's your zone read game, right? I thought that the Bills would do that a little bit more. Josh Allen had a couple key scrambles in there. He had a couple first downs or close first downs. I did think he'd be a bigger factor just because it's risky throwing the football. In the wind just because of accuracy. And it's not just accuracy, too. It's tough to catch, right, Sam? It's tough to catch in the cold with the ball flying around, as we mentioned on the Diggs play there. The other part about the Patriots rushing attack, you don't always come out of it. Like the Patriots are one of the few teams I think that are equipped to do this. I mean, how many can? Like Army, Navy? Like who else can actually do this? But the Patriots have one of the more versatile rushing attacks in the league, right? They run power, they run counter off of it, they can run zone, they run traps. Nobody in the NFL runs traps anymore, and that's always good for a 10-yard gain the first time you run it, right? I mean, they had a variety. They run the toss sweep, the crack stuff. They have a variety of a run game, so it's not as simple as, hey, the Bills know you're going to run. They don't know where, they don't know what the scheme is, and clearly they should have done a better job of stopping the run, but the Patriots did a nice job of at least mixing those concepts up.
Also, all of a sudden, N'Keal Harry comes into his own when you don't need him to actually catch the ball. When you just say you line up there and down block on a defensive end, like that's N'Keal Harry's bread and butter right there.
Unless it's a punt return. That would be the one decision that Bill Belichick got away with. The first NFL punt return from N'Keal Harry muffed, and it sets up the Bills' only touchdown.
Yeah, that was a bizarre one. They had like two punt returners back there, and Harry somehow managed to avoid getting in the way of it on the first bounce, and then let the second bounce come down and crack him in the face mask. And that was basically the only thing Buffalo got going in the game. Like, they got set up in the red zone, scored a touchdown, and that was almost their entire offense. But Josh Allen led the team rushing and only had 6 attempts. Like, that should and could have been a much bigger part of this offense. Josh Allen attempted 30 passes in a game where you couldn't really pass the ball. Now, he completed 145 yards and a touchdown, so it's not like it was impossible. And sure, some of that was laid on where he needed to pass. But on the one side, you've got the Patriots rushing 40 times in the game, basically not letting Mac Jones put the ball in the air at all. On the other hand, you've got Josh Allen essentially having a normal type of cadence of throw versus pass, or throw versus run. I agree with you. I think they should have pivoted to more of a run-heavy style of attack and used Josh Allen as if he was Cam Newton or, Daniel Jones. Apparently that's something he does as well.
And the bottom line in this one is the game counts just as much in the standings as any other one. So the Patriots, one step closer to perhaps getting the number 1 seed. These teams will meet again in a couple weeks, as you mentioned earlier. But huge win for the Patriots, and just another great example of Bill Belichick, the entire Patriots team adjusting to the conditions and winning, any way that they can do it. So great win by the Patriots. Another win for future Rookie of the Year Mac Jones, 2 for 3.